What is your value equation? On the one side, you've got whatever it will cost your clients or customers to buy what you're providing. So that's the price or the fee. And on the other side over here, you've got the benefit you provide. And the benefits can be two types. They can be tangible, so that's the actual good or service that you are providing. And they can also be intangible. So intangible, that's things like good name, customer service, delivery options, payment options, all the things that will make your proposition more attractive, but they're not necessarily the underlying product. Ways in which you package it, ways in which you can create an image that makes it seem more sought after. So all of those things are intangible. Now, the thing is that the bigger the gap between what the price is over here, or the cost, and what the benefits, both tangible and intangible, are over here, the bigger the gap, the more persuasive your proposition becomes. The big mistake, obviously, is to work on reducing your price over here to increase the gap, whereas what you should be doing is keeping your prices high over here and increasing the benefits, both tangible and intangible. But that's only half the story, because then you get to, well, how am I now going to get enough people to buy this product, to make it worthwhile, or service? So the first thing you need to know is who's your ideal customer or client, because the thing about the ideal customer or client is that's the person that you can portray yourself as being a specialist or an expert to. So identifying the ideal client means that you've immediately increased these benefits, particularly the intangible, you're the expert to deal with. So you need to have an ideal client, and then you need to be able to not just have the value for that ideal client, but you've got to communicate the value to them. So how do you do that? Well, when it comes to communicating the value, if you don't do that, you can have as big a gap as you like here, on your value equation, but it won't be enough to make people come and buy from you unless they know about it and they believe it. So you have to be able to communicate it. And just as an aside, that's a really important one as well, because you won't be able to communicate your value to your ideal customer or client unless you genuinely believe it yourself. So you have to communicate the value to yourself, if you like. You've got to buy into the value you're providing before you can ever sell it or communicate it to anyone else, unless you're a con man or con woman or con person. Obviously, I think what happens there is they persuade themselves that they genuinely are providing something that's good, and that's how they are able to convince others. So you've got to be able to communicate the value here. Now, how do you do that? Well, there are 10 key elements that you have to cover off in order to communicate the value you provide. So 10 key elements in any sort of sales or persuasive argument or presentation or anything where you're trying to get someone to see your point of view or to agree with you. And even that's not enough, because you can have the value, you can communicate the value brilliantly, but it still won't be enough, because you've also got to be aware of this thing called the buyer's journey. And the buyer's journey basically says that at any given time, of 100 people who may or may not be in the market for your product or service, now 30 probably will never buy, but the other 70 might at some stage, or will at some stage, not necessarily from you. The way it works is there's 97 on what's called the buyer's journey, looking for information to be provided to them on a constant repetitive basis. And there are 3%, 3 out of the 100, who are actually ready. And then they're the ones that you've got to try and get to come through your sales funnel here, as opposed to someone else's sales funnel. So there's a lot to this. You've got to get your value equation right. You've got to identify who it's most aimed at, because that increases the value equation. You've got to communicate the value, and you've got to communicate the value on a repetitive basis, because people need several pieces of communication, several pieces of information to enable them to make their mind up on their buyer's journey before they decide to buy and before they decide who to buy from. So there you have it, the value equation and how to actually get people to see the value of your value equation and to actually buy from you. Hope you found that interesting. Thanks very much for watching.